Hello, everybody. Okay, so today we're going to be reading 3 things in particular. 2 of them are short stories. The other one is an introduction to the Wanderers Library Hub. Not 100% sure who wrote the Wanderers Library Hub, but the 2 tales that we're going to be reading in particular are The Black Vaults of Alagadda and one that was found in a dusty corner of the library. Both of these tales are written by somebody called, I think their name is Cerastes? Regardless, I hope you guys have an interesting rest of your day, night, whatever it is. See you in the video. Welcome, Wanderer! The Wanderer's Library is the hub of all knowledge throughout every universe and dimension. Its endless halls carry every book that has or ever will be written, and several that won't. Scholars from worlds unknown stalk its aisles and trash bins for forbidden knowledge. It would take several lifetimes to read the contents of even one shelf in the library. So, what are you waiting for? What is a library? It is a lot more than a man-made structure full of books. It can be an eclectic collection of all assortments and mannerisms. Arcane knowledge and cookbooks deserve to sit side by side. But they are nothing without readers. Without a head to sit in, writing is just a pretension of abstract shapes seeking meaning. Ultimately, libraries are those groups treasuring what little anyone can truly know. In my younger days, I failed to accomplish my dream, becoming a library unto myself, seizing all which could be known and fitting it within my own person, despite the best intentions. I've snuffed out more ideas than any book burner could ever dream of incinerating, unleashing the damnation of fire, and forgetting on so many of my fellow patrons. It is my penultimate regret, before allowing hubris to make me who I am today. So, as you browse all the knowledge you could possibly ask for, there must always be that voice whispering in your ear to remind you that mortality is a virtue. Let the library be the one who keeps all which cannot be remembered, else then you may never be able to forget. The one who knows. Where is the library? Well, you're standing in it. Go ahead and gawk. Everyone does their first time. Don't worry, the shelves aren't going to fall down anytime this century. It just feels like it because they're so high and narrow. The library is, I suppose the best way to describe it would be a hub. Kind of like this hub, except instead of worlds, the library is the root of every world, universe, and timeline that has ever existed or will ever exist. You guys have that saying, right? All roads lead to Rome? Yeah, it's kind of like that. No matter where you are in reality, or sometimes out of it, you can always find a way back here. Get it? A way? Oh man, they don't even tell you what ways are anymore? Right. Well, a way is a kind of wormhole. The lab-coated fucks at the Foundation probably have some techno-jargon name for it, but we call them what they are. Ways. Of course, all ways have knocks. A kind of trick to get in. There's one in New York where you have to pour chicken blood over a manhole. This one's easy, though. You just need someone who's been inside to invite you. As long as I'm here, you can get through. Next time, you can let yourself in. Yeah, go ahead. Of course you can read them. Don't be stupid. Be a pretty shit library if you couldn't read the books, right? But you won't be able to read all of them. So don't bother trying. I know guys who have spent lifetimes trying to complete just one shelf. And there are countless shelves in the library. That is not an expression. As far as we know, the place is quite literally infinite in every direction. At night, try looking up. You can see the stars. Sometimes you come across entire clouds forming at the tops of shelves. Don't ask me where the light comes from. I couldn't tell you. Matter of fact, there's a lot about this place nobody knows. Nobody knows when it was founded. It just seems to have always been here. Nobody knows where the books come from. They just appear. And of course, nobody knows who created it, if anyone. Well, nobody who can talk knows. Maybe the librarians do. Oh, right. See the tall cloaked guy with a lantern? Don't stare. It's not polite. Yeah, he has no mouth. He's a decadent. One of the guys who works here. If you need to go around somewhere, the decadents show you where it's at. They also make sure nobody does anything they're not supposed to. They're one of the 3 major kinds of librarians. You also have pages, the spidery-looking fellows who organize all the books. Look, there's one now. There's also archivists, but those are much less common. You can only find them at the front desk. They're the ones without the eyes. That doesn't stop them from knowing where every book is at any given time, though. If you want to check it out, you'll need this card to show them. Hold on to the card. By the way, it can act as your ID in a lot of places, and if someone else gets a hold of it, they own you. Another thing to remember, always return your books on time. You don't want to know what happens to the ones that become overdue. We're in the main hall right now. It's a bit emptier this hour, only 100 people or so. It looks cozy, but don't be fooled. The space here is weird. It can expand to fit more people without changing dimensions. It's hard to explain, but you'll see. Feel free to grab a desk or seat and just start, reading. Everything is shared property in here. We're all wanderers in spirit. I think there is an orientation happening in a little while. I want to hit that up. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. Happy reading, Wanderer. L.S. The Black Vaults of Alagadda. The poisoned fruit, the library's corrupted seed. Conspectus. In a time lost to the pages of history, the Wanderer's library was the greatest source of knowledge among the tree's branches and roots. All knowledge, no matter how humdrum or prized, feared or loved, harmless or terrifying, could be found to those who had the strength and clarity to search among its halls. But Alagadda's sickening corruption knows no bounds. The master of the slain plunged a dagger into the library's heart, leaving a gaping wound that bleeds to this day, and has brought a dearth of souls down to its damnable city. Knowledge. Traits. The vaults of Alagadda are filled with the plunder of the sacking from the library. Every tome and text that the prince of the gallows and his demons treacherously stole, one might describe the nature of those texts as those associated with forbidden knowledge, which is a laughable claim. Knowledge is only forbidden to those not strong enough to withstand it. What is true is the one who was hung had taken only the most powerful sources of knowledge, the secrets that have propelled seeker after seeker in search of them, the nature of the devourer of Yaldabaoth and her destroyer angels, the 16 names of the Scarlet King, the terrible birth of the Wonder Maker, the whispered confessions of the last king of the Night of the Apes. Like a fly to a spider, the secrets hidden within these vaults have lured countless souls into Alagadda's web. Nature. The nature of the Black Vaults can be understood as a twisted reflection of the library, as befits something grown from a corrupted seed. Where the library is an altruistic source of knowledge and enlightenment, free to any who wish to enter, the vaults of Alagadda are selfishly locked away to the private benefit of its master, akin to an arrogant dragon perched upon its jealously guarded hoard. History and associated parties. Once, it is said, in a time when the world was new, the ruler of Alagadda was a patron of the Tree of Knowledge like any other. Through magic or trickery, it found itself at the center of a following, which was referred to at the time as the King's Court. Even though, in the days of old, no one knew from where it had been crowned. The King's Court quickly grew to become the largest block within the library, starving out or assimilating smaller ones. Those within the King's Court began to think of the Hooded One as their sovereign, rather than a fellow patron. Archivists began heeding the court's advice when it came to their duties. showering them with preferential treatment at first, eventually progressing to the point where they would come to the king's court each morning to heed their instruction. At one point, the group held such sway that they could bar entry into the library to anyone they deemed unworthy, which, coincidentally, was always those who had questioned their worrying influence. The height of the king's court's power came to an end with the sacking of the library. Few dare to speak of those times, but it is said that entire shelves were burned and ink and blood flowed in equal measure. At the end of it, dozens lay dead or dying, and half of the texts in the library had been stolen away to Alagadda, along with the court. Approach. If you ever find yourself in Alagadda, then you are already lost. Turn back and preserve whatever remains of your soul. To bargain with the god-shaped hole is to throw yourself into the abyss. But if you must go, it is said the dreamsmiths of the Aronoroi whisper of a ritual that must be followed, one of tributes and offerings. Supplicate yourself on bended knee before the throne of sorrows, and you may be found fit to enter his halls. But what sort of price can one offer someone who holds all of the world's deepest secrets at heart? And how does the mournful one react to one who has failed to please it? Observations and stories. While many stories enter Alagadda, few escape to indulge in its hidden pleasures, is good and well, but when the lamb becomes unruly, the wolves will pounce. While there have been many rumors and whispers of petitioners to the Black Vaults, only 3 people have been known to successfully enter the vaults. The 4th priest of the astral planes, may his name live on only in the blackest of hearts. He betrayed his kind and offered the dying screams of his entire world, eternally preserved in a singular enduring moment. The mysterious Knight of Flowers is said to have knelt before the monarch of masks and cast away its name in order to enter the vaults. One must wonder if any reward can truly be worth that price. But it is said that the knight was sent on their way with the knowledge they had been seeking. At the very least, a begrudging respect can be paid to the knight for a price that they alone can bear the cost of. And the anarchist Rachel Nguyen, in comparison, did not offer up anything compared to the splendor of a true name or an entire world, but instead gave a painting, said to have been completed by a man named Francisco Goya in his final days. This story bears little deviation between retellings, suggesting a seed of truth to it. What Alagadda would want with the painting is unclear, though Nguyen is known to hold sway in certain circles of "Are we cool yet?", suggesting a grim undercurrent to the artistic movement. Doubt. While the overwhelming majority of sources on the sack of the library agree on the events described, there are a few stories that claim otherwise. If these did not happen to be the oldest accounts more often than not, little truth would be associated with them. These accounts paint a very different picture of the events, referring it to not as a sack, but a split. That in order to protect all who dwell within its halls, the library allowed its most dangerous books to be whisked away to Alagadda, to an isolated place for those who would destroy themselves in the pursuit of knowledge. The very idea sounds laughable at first, but could it be true? It was first a seeker of knowledge like any other. What of the story of the god King Odin, who hung himself on the tree of life for 9 days to discover its deepest secrets? Many stories shared among the crows tell a similar story, a darker one, no doubt, of one who sacrificed himself in pursuit of dark knowledge. But to merely look at these anecdotes and to draw a conclusion from it would be rather hasty of any truth seeker. However, It brings to mind a story I heard among the shelves countless ages ago. Once, in the library, there was a charming warlock, quick to make jokes and quick to make friends. One day, he thought to himself to steal a copy of the archivist's logs, the list of every true name of all cardholders to the library. To steal such private information would be to consign oneself to a fate worse than death. But the charming warlock was always in short supply of common sense. He had someone distract the archivists at the front desk by creating a ruckus on the other side of the great hall, and then went in to claim his misguided prize. Of course, his plan failed. As the story goes, he happened to glance at the first name on the list, a name that, by position, would have been one of the first cardholders to the library after its conception. One look at its true name was all it took to shatter him utterly, and leave him a drooling mess on the floor for the archivists to find. Sadly, that is where the tale ends, as the man is said to serve silently as a decadent to this day, indistinguishable from all the others. If the story was true, however, if the hanged king retains his access and was merely the vessel the library chose to work through, perhaps we know less of these halls than we've thought. Found in a dusty corner of the library, by the hands of the fifth and final priest of the astral seas. The library, more commonly known as the Wanderer's Library, is the finest source of knowledge in all the world. No empire or civilization has ever come close to rivaling what the library has to offer, even that of those of the forgotten names, who know what it is and what it is not. It is said that the vaults of Alagadda hold several forbidden knowledge that were stolen from the library, but I shudder to think of what price the hanged king and his masked lords would demand for a mere taste. Yet, despite the wonders that lie before me, such as the texts on the demon foxes and a tome on the practices of the howling dark, I find myself with little to peruse on my chosen subject, that of the serpent itself. It sounds strange at first glance, perhaps even laughable. Even those with the newest cards would tell you that the library was built upon the serpent's back, and it is by his devotion that this place exists. The group of misfits known as the Serpent's Hand style themselves after it, with many worshipping it as a trickster god. Some believe this is how they retain their library cards, but there is no proof of this. At closer glance, the litany of volumes on the subject reveal many take their ideas from earlier works. One, Alison Chow, a name that seems to repeat itself throughout the shelves, curiously enough, states in her book, Our Prometheus, gossip would have you believe that the library is located on the serpent's back. This is a metaphor, taken as fact. The library was built upon the back of the serpent, who labored to create this sanctuary of knowledge. The serpent does not even exist as a true being. It is a platonic ideal of knowledge at any cost. If it were true, it would be of great value to my works. But how did she arrive at this conclusion? Later, in her text, Chow cites a series of scrolls by Sarah of the Infinite Chaos, a Devite priest of the king adorned in red, one on the nature of divinity and true faith. The relevant passage, compiled here, details his thoughts on the serpent. The law of howling and the law of blood are the chains that bind him, like the serpent who peruses his secrets eternally. A lazy citation by itself, but she proves her credentials. Miss Chow cites 3 additional well-respected authors who provide relevant documents and thaumaturgical workings to lend credence to their assertions. All seem to agree that the serpent is not a true being, but an aspect of knowledge to have faith in. A closer look at these sources reveal a troubling trait. An alarming number of her sources and her sources' sources appear to share a group of common references. Established facts devolve into conclusions, which devolve into assumptions, which devolve into hypotheses. Ultimately, this particular strand of knowledge can be traced back to the collections of the writings of Zilaskar, the last of Yurnin. If we examine the serpent from the perspective of a composed being of knowledge, with an eternal hunger that can never be satisfied, a theoretical position that had been twisted into hearsay and then tempered into a fact. It is curious that the librarians, many of themselves paying penance for introducing falsehoods to the library, would have overlooked something like this. I may have dismissed this as a simple case of non-omniscience, had the librarians not come up to me and inquired into the nature of the research I had been conducting. It was unable to assist me, but pointed me towards a distant corner of the library, 100 leagues south of the main desk. That could prove useful. Suspicious, yes, but it was something concrete. My teleportation techniques in extra-dimensional spaces are woefully out of practice, so I endured the long and arduous journey. Each day of travel, I seemed to be heading into a quieter and less trodden part of the library. The library was ancient beyond measure, but it seemed the parts I was traveling to were older than that, if it was even possible. Carefully constructed wooden floors turned rougher and rougher until I was walking on dirt packed between interwoven branches. That is where I found a most curious surprise. In a room that had been forgotten by time, a single bookshelf was all that was present within, with 6 books on the shelf. I opened the first one and began reading. It was the journal of, strangely enough, Alison Chow. And Anastasia, Nasha, Satan. To those who know where to listen, these are the names repeated in the same breath as the mysterious god of the Wanderer's Library. But behind those, there are only rumors and conjecture. It seemed that this Alison Chow, who must be different from my previous contact, I'm sure of it, was a wanderer seeking knowledge of the serpent, and ended up in this curious room much like myself. I grabbed the next book on the shelf, this by a Lord Theodore Blackwood, and skipped ahead to the end. While my inquiries about the serpent have resulted in frustratingly little, it has led me to this odd little room, with Miss Chow's ruminations on the serpent to add to my collection. Perhaps whoever finds this collection of musings can solve this elusive riddle. The next 4 were more of the same, each author having been an explorer searching for information on the serpent, only to arrive at the same room as I had when they fell short of that goal. Each appeared to have incorporated the previous one's work, building to a bigger, yet incomplete part of the mystery. I must have been there for hours, adding every little scrap of their work into my own, crossing off avenues they had already explored, and debunking theories they had tentatively proposed. When I beheld the fruits of my labors, it fell woefully short of a definite answer on the nature of the serpent. But, hopefully, whoever came after me would have something to pass on. I paused at the thought. Was this all by design? The web of misinformation surrounding the serpent, the books with their woefully wrong conclusions. It seemed to have led me to this room, for passing on my knowledge to the next generation of seekers. If so, who was the architect of this scheme? The librarians? Or was it the hand of the serpent, placing a test to see who truly deserved to know the truth? Or did it never exist in the first place, and instead was tentatively forging its own history? As I sit here now, scribbling the last remnants into my journal for whomever stumbles into this hidden corner of lore, I leave you these words. Good hunting. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I might be going into the Wanderers Library Hub, but it will have to be, unfortunately, at a later date. I'm focusing on a list gotta finish the list. So, best estimates on when that may be read. Only 4 months from now, at least. We'll see. We'll see how all this goes, especially considering I'm gonna be starting my seasonal job. Yay! It's gonna be groundskeeping at an arboretum, which is pretty cool. But anyways, hopefully we'll see you in some other videos. But regardless, hopefully you have an amazing rest of your day, night, whatever it is.